Fishful Thinker is brought to you by Berkeley, your fish, our science. Abu Garcia, fish to win. Sportsman's Warehouse, gear up for unforgettable. Yeah, that one thumped it pretty good, guys. Yeah, that one went right to it. And, oh no, I got him. We'll spare him from the net if we can. I know everyone at home's like, why would you just net him? But I really don't care if he comes off, and it's just easier on fish if you don't put him in a net. Ta-da!
There you go.
That's the pointy end. That's the part you gotta watch out for. This is my standard tube jig rod, what I would call my tube jig rod, guys. It's 7 feet long, medium power, fast action. It's got 8-pound trilene 100% fluorocarbon XL on it. The XL stands for extra limp. It's the softer version of the fluorocarbon that's made specifically for spinning reels. Speaking of that, I got a Revo Premier 30. Anytime I'm gonna have fluorocarbon on a spinning reel, I want a larger diameter spool. So I've got the size 30 on here. This rod 99% of the time has a tube jig on it. And we got just enough wind to keep us honest. So you need the rod tip down, flatten the line angle out as much as possible. Plus that'll keep the bait pinned to the bottom better by having that line real flat in the water column. And by having fluorocarbon, it sinks, so it keeps a nice straight line to the bait even when it's slacked out, so that works out pretty good. And anything that gets heavier than the jig, I will set the hook on. But the other thing is if the jig goes weightless, if you're trying to pull the jig and all of a sudden there's no weight there anymore, like your jig's been cut off, just swing immediately because that thing's made out of lead. It's gonna go back to the bottom and you're gonna feel the resistance. So if you pick up on this and there's no resistance, it's because a fish picked it up and he's taking the weight off the jig, and so that's a really important time to set the hook. That's the one I call them pressure bites. Those are the ones that that 99% of customers miss on guide trips. When I see their guide pick up and the rod tip stays the same thing and doesn't flex at all, and I'm like, go, 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 go. You know, you want them to set the hook, and guys just don't realize it. They're trying to find the jig. They keep reeling, trying to find the jig. Well, instead, just swing on them because you'll find your jig planted in the roof of the mouth of whatever it was that picked it up.
Absolutely.
Oh, there you go, right down almost under the boat. I thought I just had a swing on one too. And let you handle him. Need a hand, you got him? Oh, you've done this before?
Got him.
Okay, perfect. There you go, and that's what they look like. All right guys, so a couple key things here as we're cruising around looking for new spots. And this whole end of the lake is all undulating bottom. There's old gravel quarries and everything out here. Really important that you fish spots, not areas.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so defined back here with how the bottom's coming up and down. These fish are on specific transition points.
So that's very obvious, okay, out here in some of the fishing we've already done, and that's what we're looking for here, guys. We're looking at the side imaging and everything else and finding those key spots with the contour maps and then the side imaging or the down scan to make sure we're right there. But that same concept is just as important when we did the Cherry Creek fishing.
Absolutely.
We're fishing tiny little spots like the size of this boat. You know those waypoints because you're there a lot. We went straight to those waypoints and caught them.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that happens, especially with these walleyes. They will sit on tight spots, and even out at Jumbo that one day, there's one big hump out there, and we're right on it and catching fish like crazy. And
as soon as you get away from that, then you don't catch them. So first of all, you need to know how to find the spots, whether it be with your map, whether it be with producing your own maps, which is very common these days, or just reading your sonar. Look at this, we could probably catch one right here. I'm thinking right on that corner right there, guys. But we're headed for another spot. But at any rate, if you produce your own maps, great. If you download social maps, Lawrence has social maps. You can download those that basically community maps that everybody uploads data to. That can be a really good call. The other thing can be just watching your graph and marking waypoints. I mean, for many years as a fishing guide, I just marked waypoints, had lots of waypoints, never really knew what they were other than they were good spots to fish. I found a hard structure change, something like that. Fishful Thinker is brought to you by Lowrance. Find, navigate, dominate. Sportsman's Warehouse. Gear up for unforgettable. Bottom content. How much you watch bottom content? Hard bottom, soft bottom?
Especially in a lake like Cherry Creek that doesn't have quite the level of structure as out here. Right. You can find areas that have small chunk rock next to areas with mud, and the walleyes are piled up right on that line.
Yeah, so. makes a big difference. I just got back from fishing in Minnesota. He's like, well, we want to fish the first drop off. I'm like, okay, so I'm looking out. I've never been there before. We're looking at the graph as we go out. The bottom rolled like 18 inches maybe, and it was a subtle little roll. And he goes, oh yeah, there's our drop off. And I'm like, that's not, with lake I live in, a drop-off's like 40 feet vertical,
Yes.
you know, like it's just, but it's relative to your lake is the point being. And so like you said, at Cherry Creek, there may not be the big structural changes or depth changes, so it could be the bottom content.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about cover? Like for instance, out here we saw a bunch of barrels on the bottom, the old concrete piping. Do you fish specific cover as well, or are you fishing more structural elements for walleyes?
For walleyes, not so much. For bass, obviously, yes. But the walleyes, I have a lot more success staying away from that heavy cover. Maybe a weed line,
right?
But not necessarily if there's more rock piles, we would do more of that out here. But rather than those concrete pipes, and that's not so much. More of the edges of the drops.
More of the edges of the drops. They like the structural changes, and it's probably a safe bet to assume that since the more defined of those edges are, which is what we were keying on today, the harder they are.
Yep.
Because if they were soft over this built was built in the 50s, they would wear down and they get real soft and rounded. When you find ones with a hard drop on them, the erosion hasn't been able to affect them. They've got to be a harder bottom.
Absolutely.
So that can be a really key thing as well. But the big thing too, you have to trust your graph. When we looked at spots, there's no fish on them. If they don't show up on here, then we're not fishing there. There's other structural places to go fish. I know you follow your Laurentians all the time as well.
I always say that you can catch fish out of a bathtub if you had the right electronics.
Yeah,
and although it's real nice to fish out of the big Ranger boat, in reality, the electronics are the thing that's really paying the bills.
Yeah, the way I talked with people about the big boat, it's really a giant tackle box. It's insulated like a cooler, and it has good electronics.
Yeah.
But I can haul all my stuff around it, and everywhere I go, it's like a big giant tackle box. So yeah, those are key things. Any other key things for a guy that's going to key on offshore structure for walleyes? A couple other key things real quick.
Being able to keep yourself on the spot is also critically important.
Boat control.
And also orienting yourself with how the wind is going to be blowing can also be important. It started blowing a little bit. Right now, we're not dealing with very much, but if it's blowing 30 miles an hour,
or even 15
miles an hour, and you're trying to fish a light jig, which sometimes is the key, you have to change yourself and orient your boat so that you can fish downwind or upwind on a situation like that. But boat control is critical. Whether you're using an anchor or a spot anchor or a power pole, you have to use one of those things to keep you on
to hold
these
you
spots.
there. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And we're not drifting areas, we're fishing spots. One of the key things too on the Laurentians, the way I have mine set up, I have what's called the look ahead lines. So they basically shoot ahead extensions, you know, and it tells you which way the boat's pointing as well as which way the boat is actually moving. And those two are almost never the same. If you're a pilot out there, it's course and heading, right? Well, knowing which way the boat's pointing all the time can be really, really important versus moving, because then you know where you are specifically in relation to your structure. Because GPS, when the boat is sitting still, will often be rotating. It's not a perfect science. If you know the boat's always pointed this way and the hump's always that way, it doesn't matter which way the course is. It's the heading that's really important. And so by having those, it makes it really easy to know where I am in relation to my waypoints. It can be a really key thing as well. But the offshore structure bite, when we decide we want to go film something like that, he's one of the first guys I call for walleyes. And I think after you've watched all these shows, you'll see why. All right, and that one was out farther out on the end of that point there. Those guys moved, and so I threw it back out that way a little bit, and we won't need to net him. And on this note, guys, I would like to say Mr. Austin Parr once again has put us on a pile of walleyes right here. And so that's a nice one there, guys, and we'll take that one. That's a nice looking fish. Come on, buddy, come on up in here. We don't need to net you. And I want to point out, there's my little crawler, gulp pinch crawler. Never even seen one of those before, guys, until today. But there's another cookie cutter Chatfield walleye, lots and lots of those in this pond. And we'll put that one back. Fishful Thinker is brought to you by Berkeley, your fish, our science. Abu Garcia, fish to win. Sportsman's Warehouse, gear up for unforgettable. Notice this rod just hangs here in my hand. If you guys look at that, it's just hanging here in my hand. By having it like this and just dragging it this way, I allow the rod to be very responsive. There's a reason you pay a lot of money for a fishing rod. As soon as you're death gripping it like this, now the rod is dead. Now you've dampened any action that the rod can possibly have. So if you can just let the rod hang in your hand and swing under the weight of the rod, more often than not, you're gonna feel a lot more, plus you won't fatigue yourself at all. And you know, if you're fishing for a long day, I mean, we're only out here for a few hours today, but if you've got a long day, the longer you clamp on that rod, the less fish you're gonna catch, the more snags you're gonna get, because you don't feel the difference between a fish and a snag and you know, things like that. When I have clients that are constantly hook setting into snags, I know they're holding onto the rod too much. All you do is tell them to loosen up your grip on the rod and you'll know that it's not a bite, it's a rock, you know? We talked about not holding onto the rod real hard. That's a key part of it, just letting the rod hang. The other thing is take your other hand off your reel.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, and this thing, you probably observe it on guide trips as well, guys want to run the reel too much. And the more this reel's turning, the more it's putting energy into the line, which fish might feel in the case of braided line. The more you're not letting your bait stay natural to the bottom, the more tension you have on the line. Also, the more you're dampening the rod, plus the feel of the reel itself spinning will put vibration into the rod. So the less you hold on to the handle of the reel and let it just control slack, just spin the reel and let it control slack. That way you're gonna catch more fish from that too.
And whether you're finesse jigging or blade bait fishing or fishing more of a glide bait like a Johnny Daughter, I do it on all of those things. Take that hand off, because people, they get used to wanting to trout fish and cast a spinner or a spoon and get their hand on there. That's not what we're doing on any of these techniques, and it's important to remember that.
As both of us being guides, the other thing to keep in mind too is we talked about people not detecting bites. A lot of guys won't keep their bait on the bottom. And, oh, I am on the bottom. I'll grab the rod tip and lower it. And like, whoa, that line sank a long ways for being still on the bottom, because they lose track of the bait as it gets closer to the boat, and they pick it up and pick it up and pick it up. And it's because they're retrieving too much slack. So if you can't do this and let a little bit of line go back to the bottom, I don't ever want to see line just sitting on the surface of the water. But I don't ever want to see it real tight either on a finesse presentation, or your bait's just not behaving normally. All right, there we go.
This feels like a pretty good one too, Chad.
Does it?
I think that maybe
Did you catch a big one?
I think the net is actually
gonna
be...
I love that. You gotta love when the show guest is calling for the net on a walleye at 11 o'clock in the morning. And we're gonna go, oh, that's a good size
Just got his
fish.
head down.
Well, I'll take that
There
one
we
for
go.
sure. There you go, buddy.
Nice.
Grab that one. All right, that's a good catch. And yeah.
Had his head down.
Head down. That's a good looking fish, dude. Perfect. There you go. Perfect. Nicely done. Yeah, you can ditch him. Yep. And guys, there you have it. Austin Parr always produces walleyes for us, whether it's Cherry Creek, whether it's Chatfield, whether it's Jumbo. So walleye93@gmail.com. Hopefully you guys enjoyed last week's show and this week's show, which was actually filmed this morning, the way this has all gone together. But we had a great time with the topwater bite last week, and an even better time with the jig bite this week.
Absolutely.
Got me out of my comfort zone with a bait and a rig I've never even thrown before, and then showed me how to make it work. So like I said, walleye93@gmail.com if you want to go on a guided trip with Austin. I highly recommend you do so. Special thanks to Colorado Parks and Wildlife for producing such a fantastic fishery right here in Denver. Maybe not the best big fish factory, but
a lot of them in here.
Fish factory nonetheless, yeah. So we have caught them really good today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed every part of this show. And if you want to join the conversation on social media, it's @FishfulThinker. Hopefully you enjoy all our cooking and everything on our YouTube channel as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Fish, got him. First throw with the pinch crawlers, guy. I want to point out, first throw with the pinch crawler. And that is literally my first cast ever with a gulp pinch crawler. There's the crawler right in the corner of the mouth. This is the part where we're supposed to catch them. Hey Austin, we get paid to catch these guys, not comment that they're biting and then not catch them. Fish. No, that was a bite for sure though. They took my stuff too. Oh, I missed that one. I had him for a second. You see that? Awesome. Okay. I was joking with Tim on the way here that last night I mentally prepared myself for getting thumped.
After that as well, that was one.
Cut.